Today we're talking about best practices in B2B thought leadership. Our facilitator is Michael Phelan. He is a principal at Go-to-Market Pros, where he helps companies make inroads into new markets. Welcome, Michael.
How's it going, Gene?
Going great. Theme number 11, how can influencer marketing and thought leadership be combined and magnified? An interesting question in your theme. Explain what we're going to talk about today.
Yeah, traditionally the world of thought leadership, people have thought about it from the perspective of B2B companies. But more and more, we're seeing B2C companies like a Starbucks kind of having their own level of thought leadership. So we're seeing kind of both happen. And also on the influencer market, initially that was seen to be, celebrities promoting cosmetics or fashion, but we're also seeing more and more B2B companies use influencers. They might be their customers, they might be users of their products. So we're seeing kind of this convergence of thought leadership and influencer marketing come together on both B2C and B2B companies. So that's what we're going to look at is how can they be combined, and more importantly, how can they be magnified and extended through social media and through communities to be bigger than life.
Talk about the panelists that had this conversation.
Yeah, so this panel has been meeting for a couple of months now. We've worked through 11 themes together. We have a really strong set of folks, both from the U.S. market and internationally. We have folks coming in from a marketing perspective, from a public relations perspective, a sales perspective, and a social media perspective. Everybody has a strong passion and interest in the topic. So we look forward to sharing what they have to say.
Now, in your executive summary, again, you allude to this idea of thought leadership being different than influencers, but how they're also sort of evolving into becoming more of a shared personality?
Yes. They can, in fact, be combined. And when they're combined, they do magnify. And companies that get the difference between them, but the connection to them, and how do you leverage and extend them. But it does require a different strategy, and it does require dedicated resources to maximize and integrate this together. A lot of times, thought leadership may be happening in one part of a company, influencer marketing may be happening in another, and the point is, how do you bring it together? Because in many ways, influencer marketing and influencers will take a thought leadership and extend it, share it, build upon it, personalize it for their community. And of course, that's creating great visibility for the thought leaders and the thought leadership content. So if you think about it, thought leadership and thought leaders they're really focused on predicting the future, on kind of analyzing what's going on, what's happening, envisioning that. So they're kind of really looking out a year, 2 years out. They're looking at problems. They're predicting what will happen, and they're helping people to understand that, plan a way through that particular problem or challenge or evolution. Influence in the really focus on their kind of network, on growing their network. They really take pride in their followers. They want to share relevant content, hot trends, interesting ideas, likes and dislikes. They engage on discussions on a regular basis. Some of them can be very entertaining and funny. Some of them can be very educational. Many of them actually monetize their networks and make quite a lot of money from that. Companies are going after now what's called micro influencers that have small but very tight networks instead of the Kardashians, which have the massive network. So I think whether you have a small network, medium or large network, I think there are opportunities to promote relevant products to that network.
So let's get into key point number 1, which is, when does a thought leader become an influencer?
Yeah, so the panel discussed that there are several examples of people that are thought leaders and also influencers with large networks. So Guy Kawasaki and Seth Godin are both examples. One is more on the social media side. One is more on the marketing and innovation side. They publish books, they speak, but they have a huge following and they leverage social media. They tweet a lot, and people really respect what they do. They share content. Gary Vee is also very famous as a thought leader with a massive influencer following. But the panel do say from time to time that sometimes these guys do promote their own agencies, and Gary has his own agencies called They Air Media, it looks like. And so you got to be kind of careful on that. So that's kind of an important point. Also, as thought leaders, they'll engage their readers and they'll engage journalists and they'll engage influencers and really kind of get their story out in the market. So those are some of the things that will be brought up. Of course, thought leadership can be and influencers can be very positive. Richard Branson was voted as a very positive thought leader. Elon Musk, sometimes very positive, but also some
depending on the week.
Recently. So these are loud microphones, and when you combine thought leadership and influencer marketing together, it becomes an even louder microphone. So now you're talking directly to a community of passionate followers, and you can share great information with them or bad information with them, and sometimes they'll react very strongly if they don't really think you're headed in the right direction. So you have to be sensitive to your audience and your market and help them, but also, when you go down the wrong direction, you have to kind of listen to what they have to say. Otherwise, you'll lose your followers and you'll lose their respect.
Now, this takes us into key point number 1, which actually are some ideas that your panel wanted to offer to Currnt.
Yes. So the Currnt platform is a platform for developing thought leadership, and it's also a platform for sharing thought leadership or influencer marketing. So the panel dug into, what could be done, and they're very excited about this topic. The fact that Currnt could be a great place for influencers to gather together. In fact, many of them said that the facilitators panel who really kind of keep these discussions going are influencers in their own right, and many facilitators tend to have larger networks. So they pointed out things like on LinkedIn networks, there's a lot of people on LinkedIn, but there's not facilitated, there's not an active dialogue, and people are not recruited in, based on their passion for the topic versus on Currnt that they are. So Currnt could really be a place where people who are interested in key topics come to learn. REI was mentioned as a company that does a great job of both thought leadership in terms of the outdoors and how to enjoy the outdoors, but a lot of their content comes from their purchases of their product, who blog about and do share images on Pinterest and other places about their trips and what they've learned and their experience. So that's a really good example of a company who does that. So really, in the end of the day, Currnt can be the place for these companies to share such thought leadership, and also the place for these passionate advocates or followers or influencers to dig into that and get value from it. So there's a lot of excitement about Currnt evolving to be a combination of both thought leadership and influencer marketing.
So when a thought leader becomes an influencer, things start to get monetized, authenticity, transparency become a question, and I guess that leads us into key point number 3, right?
Yeah. So some of the concerns, and when we see this about people that are, have tremendous authenticity, that you look at somebody like Oprah and the Book of the Month Club and all the different things that she's done, and there's really never been, any issues around her authenticity on that. So she continues to have a lot of followers. In other cases, people will really start to question that. So the point that Jay brought up was about trust. You really have their trust and their followers, and you're building trust, you're building connection. Your followers are sharing and commenting on what you're talking about, and they're going to trust you that that's authentic and it's genuine and it's not commercial. And if you are publicizing something for commercial reasons, then I think you really should say that. So there's been some discussion in the media about kickbacks that are kind of hidden and are not disclosed, and I think that makes people wary of that. So it's really around authenticity, and you got to maintain that credibility, and it's fine if you want to share a sponsored post or if you want to share something you're being paid to do, but you should just acknowledge that and be clear about it, that this isn't you're the best product in the world you ever had, and this isn't something you use, but this is something that you're promoting. So that's the concern, is just maintaining that credibility and keeping that transparency.
Now, getting into key point number 4, you do have some best-in-class examples. Some we just love. They are the rock stars, like Simon Sinek. So tell us about this.
Yeah, so Simon Sinek really made his fame on a TED Talk that he talked about companies talking about the why of what they do rather than the what of what they do, and how the why of what they do is more inspirational and meaningful and motivational for us. He recently did another talk on millennials in the workplace, which is fascinating. And as he's continued to talk and share, he's become hugely popular, and he's got a huge following, and people listen to his podcasts and his videos, and they follow him on Facebook and on Twitter and other places. So he actually started as a thought leader and became an influencer and has managed that process very well. The points guy is another interesting guy. He's the guy that kind of really came out of nowhere to talk about, how you accumulate points and how he uses points and where the best points deals are, and actually built a really strong following such that, airline companies were hiring him to advertise their points-based products and to add credibility to their credit cards and other things. Obviously, he's got to watch that kind of line there as well. Humans of New York kind of really came out of nowhere of taking, real pictures of people and telling their stories, and all of a sudden became books, and all of a sudden became web content, and really exploded through social media. And that's probably spun off a whole set of different commercial opportunities. But it started with, a passion for people in New York and their stories. It started very authentically and really built into something very big and very significant, and then became kind of more commercial over time, not in a bad way, but in the fact that people wanted to buy these books, and they wanted to have these assets that they felt were genuine and authentic in their origin.
Sounds great. So a really great, lively panel discussion. Talk about three that really stood out for you.
Yeah, so Christine and Himanshu and Maureen have been on several panels with me, and they've been very active on this panel and really believe in this combination of thought leadership and influencer marketing. So they all shared examples, and we had great dialogue and discussion back and forth, both sharing and challenging and offering new advice. And that's really the kind of benefit, is the synergy of all these kind of passionate experts having kind of meaningful dialogues and sprints on topics like this for a week to 2 weeks. And then we kind of gather it up all and report it back to folks so that they can gain the value from it.
Well, really fascinating presentation, Michael. This information was really, really quite interesting. Are we going to have theme number 12? And if so, what are you guys talking about?
Yeah, so the next theme is really kind of digging into, what's the difference between B2C and B2B thought leadership. As we started off, everyone was thinking, that the concept of thought leadership was really more of a B2B domain. But as we've really got into it, we're really seeing some of the most innovative companies like the Starbucks and others that really are inspiring their audience and their product creation and delivery system, and are doing a lot of really innovative things. So we're going to kind of peel the onion back and do a compare and contrast on B2C and B2B, and where and when that's coming together, and how it should be separated, and how companies should think about it differently.
That sounds great. Look forward to that. Thank you again, Michael Phelan. He's a principal at Go-to-Market Pros, where he helps companies make inroads into new markets. And Michael, we will talk again.
Thanks a lot, Gene.